You use technology to control physical things. Similarly, there is mind tech, which is used to control the boundless luminescence.
Receiver is an indie game developed by Wolfire Games, and it's what I guess you could define as a pistol simulator, aimed at actual gun enthusiasts, and people who think that playing lots of Call of Duty and Battlefield means they fall under the same category. The only real objective in Receiver is that you're supposed to recover 11 cassette tapes across a randomly generated environment that contain ambiguous, expositional dialogue delivered by someone that sounds bored out of their skull.
In either case, please take a moment to confirm that the firearm you have been issued is in working order and contains one full magazine.
From what I can gather from the tapes I managed to collect is that there was something called a Mindkill event, which ended up doing something somewhere to some people. Now you're someone called a Receiver who has some sort of power to do stuff. That's about all I could get from it. Now you're stuck on some sort of construction site late at night for God knows what reason. You've got to contend with turrets and flying drones, or kill drones as the game calls them, that attack you on sight. And also the incredibly complex and intricate controls involved for handling one of the 3 guns the game chooses to give you on each playthrough. When I say complex, I really mean complex. I've played a lot of shooting games and I can't think of a single other game that has this many controls and options when it comes to handling weaponry. You know, changing fire modes, loading rounds into a magazine one at a time, pulling back the slide, spinning and emptying the chamber with a revolver. It's incredibly deep, but also incredibly confusing initially. Thankfully, the game gives you the option to keep the controls on screen at all times, which is handy because there's about a dozen buttons or so you're going to have to be using to keep your weapon functional. I'm not even going to pretend that I understand how any of this stuff works. I'm not a gun nut in real life and I have no interest in ever becoming one, but I can appreciate the attention to detail all the same. As I said before, the game gives you one of 3 weapons to use with each playthrough, though I really think the most useful weapon is the Glock, only because it has the largest magazine size, meaning you don't have to worry about falling back and reloading so much. I do have to say that at first I just found these controls absolutely horrible and kind of loathed the game for being so irritating, but once you learn the basics of how to load and shoot each gun, it does actually become pretty damn satisfying when it all comes together. But Receiver is crappy for 2 main reasons. Firstly, the fact that the game is randomly generated means that often things are put into the environment with no concept of balancing or fairness. By that I mean the game can often put robots in places where they're able to attack and kill you before you're even able to see them or have time to react. This happens most when entering rooms or going down staircases, and it's just annoying. There's no skill to it, it's just a matter of, 1 second you're walking, then the next you're dead. Sometimes the kill drones go down in a single hit, and sometimes it takes an entire magazine. Supposedly they have weak points, but where I shot generally didn't seem to make that much of a difference. The music does ramp up in intensity whenever enemies are nearby, but it doesn't outright reveal their location. More so, it just lets you know that danger is imminent. I've had numerous playthroughs where the game world has been built in a way where it's just impossible to proceed, like, having 2 turrets blocking a door or pathway, or just giving you such a small amount of ammunition that you're completely unable to defend yourself whatsoever. But then on other playthroughs, you start with 3 full magazines and a flashlight from the get-go, or you'll find, 3 or 4 cassette tapes within the same room. I even had one time where I spawned right in front of a turret, which just killed me instantly. I mean, come on. It doesn't help that a single hit from a kill drone will kill you outright, and they're accurate to the point that they can hit you through the tiny cracks between a staircase. I mean, that sounds fair, right? Now, you do have to keep in mind that this was a game made for something called the 7-Day FPS Challenge, and a game made in 7 days is entirely what it feels like. Visually, it looks like a game that's still in development. The dynamic lighting looks pretty good, especially when you're using the flashlight, but there's no textures whatsoever. Everything just has these flat, ugly colors lacking detail or definition. You're also liable to see the same, 3 or 4 rooms pasted over and over, even if it is so-called randomly generated. There's a few different sound effects for each type of gun, and aside from the horrible voice acting, there's a music track that is on infinite loop, but overall this is really nothing to take note of. At the end of the day, this is a really neat idea, but it's lacking a lot of polish, refinement, and balancing. Instead of honing this game over time after they'd made the challenge deadline, these guys just left it as it was and slapped a price tag on it to make a bit of dough. Yay, capitalism. What you're left with here is a largely unfinished and unrealized game. It's a cool concept that ultimately falls flat on its ass, as the enjoyment factor is left entirely up to the mercy of how forgiving the game chooses to be with each playthrough. As unique as it is, I wouldn't really recommend this game to anyone at the end of the day. There's plenty of other great military simulators out there that have a similarly realistic approach to ballistics that are much easier to enjoy and are much more fleshed out.